Every time a long run in shonen concludes, it's a bittersweet moment. Happens surprisingly rare now that I think about it, and it's especially true for anime, which lags at best a year behind source material, so when it finally catches up to those hundreds of chapters, it feels like an entire era has passed. Hello Comrade, my name is Bakius. Come, get yourself a beverage and sit down with me. We got some retrospect. To be totally frank with you, I have dismissed My Hero Acca for a while, as this one synopsis I read totally put me off with the wording. A powerless boy enrolls into an academy meant for heroes and their unique abilities. Something to that degree. It was in Russian on whatever website, and it wasn't until I randomly stumbled upon a funny clip compilation on YouTube that I thought to myself, that doesn't look too bad, I'ma give it a shot. And what a shot I gave. Instantly fell in love, binged the whole 3 seasons as if I was paid for it, and still wanted more. Turns out, it was the shit and everyone loved it, while I was a fool depriving myself of such marvelous sight. Fast forward a few years and things have changed. The hype has died down, Tomura has awakened, and people who were previously cheering for the show started hating it. I could not have been mistaken, brother. Everywhere I looked, I saw MHA has fallen off, why did they switch the arcs around, what's with this tea-sipping, lolly-carrying filler-ass villain? I was like, dude, she's an adult, what's wrong with liking a short stack? It felt like Sword Art Online all over again, and there might be something here. Kirito's adventures started getting heat when he went past the original Aincrad into the real world and into other games, and it's exactly what happened in My Hero after Season 3. Where does the story go now? Is All For One the final villain, or will it be Shigaraki? How high will the stakes become? It's like that quote from Hellsing Ultimate Abridged.
I wish All Might was here! Yeah!
Really, Jeffy?
Yes, really! Because when he was around, shit wasn't so scary! If anything, it was fucking hilarious! But ever since he left, everything's so goddamn serious!
Hey, we're doing pretty okay without him. It's our time to shine, you know?
Dude! Let's face it, we fucking suck and no one likes us!
It's no longer as simple as we thought it was going to be. That's why the students needed their hero licenses ASAP to go and bring the fight to the League of Villains, yet instead we got a random Yakuza with a 4D chess plot of making money on cork-erasing bullets, and a school festival with some nuisance streamer trying to break in. That caused a lot of cognitive dissonance of people's expectations not aligning with what they're seeing, resulting in a loss of interest or just good old outrage. I'd even go as far as to say that moments like Tomura saying he trusts Togen twice short-circuited a lot of brains by making them ask, what, are we supposed to root for these guys now? We've never seen a villain grow as much as Shigaraki did in any anime. Sure, there are friends become enemies, enemies become friends, but I can't recall a single shonen where the bad guy, who all things considered wasn't as imposing or threatening, developed in parallel with the main character in a way of making allies, surviving hardships, and becoming stronger. That's a pretty big novelty, as we usually get a new villain every arc until we climb to the ultimate evil, and many viewers couldn't wrap their heads around it, watching the antagonist do what the main character is supposed to. On top of that, the actual MC was getting less attention, which culminated in the Season 5 hate, since there was way less screen time for Deku, plus another villain organization showed up. We now have spies, double spies, things are getting complicated, and I'm fucking loving it. You can probably already tell, I'm trying my hardest to find a rational explanation for why the community was thinking MHA is going downhill, as I've enjoyed every episode up to this point, and honestly think that it kept improving past Season 3, with My Villain Academia being the best arc of the entire show because of how much it makes the world feel alive. The villains are not just sitting flat on their asses waiting for the good guys to outtrain and defeat them. No, they're sitting flat on their asses until they realize that by sitting flat on their asses, they won't achieve any of their goals. It actually takes effort to go out there and destroy the current order, otherwise everybody would have done it. Notice how there are people cheering for Shigaraki from the comfort of their homes? I, again, have never seen an anime do that outside of a select group of minions who follow insert a villain name here. It's such a small detail, but it goes to show that Facepalm is not just the guy who wants to destroy. He's a coil that was tightening over the last however long, finally being sprung. There's a bit of an issue with that statement, considering All For One shenanigans of engineering Tomura Shigaraki basically from scratch, which does detract from the whole subplot a bit, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The last 3 seasons definitely hit the spot better for an average viewer, likely because it was generally good heroes versus bad villains, and it makes me happy that the story ended on a high note. Almost, because following the chapter 430, there is a 431 that attempts to fix the uncertain endings in regards to characters' futures, which is indicative of the fact that Horikoshi does listen to his fans maybe too much. I can neither confirm nor deny the rumors of him moving arcs around in the manga or even changing the whole narratives to satisfy the readers, yet it's quite obvious that he felt the pressure to elaborate on what happens after the time skip. I agree, getting like 5 panels total for the entire cast is very underwhelming, and I wonder if it was intentional not to upset people with something they didn't want to see. Ships, for example. I never understood why it's such a volatile topic, especially when we have the author deliberately developing romantic chemistry between certain characters. Let me make this straight, pun intended. We have 2 people who have a longish history of sharing experiences good and bad, fighting for each other, as well as finding comfort in each other, not to mention Uraraka admitting her love for Deku and him having some interest in her, yet they don't even end up dating? Come the fuck on! You've put so much effort into setting up 95% of this relationship, and now you refuse to add a page or 2 about them living happily ever after? Look at Fullmetal Alchemist. There is a bit of a similar situation going on, with Ed being caught up in some serious shit, while Winry is slowly showing more and more affection even during a very stressful period of her life. Nobody's saying, oh, I'm going to hide my feelings because blah blah blah. It just naturally progresses through normal interactions, and there is no need for them to have a dinner with candles for us to take a hint. Same thing with others in My Hero. Do you really think that out of 24 people who have literally saved Japan, if not the whole world, nobody ended up in a relationship by their mid-20s? That's statistically impossible, considering there will be no end to people throwing themselves at our heroes, and the show itself highlights that. There are plenty of shonen who don't focus on romance and still have satisfying couples. Dragon Ball, FMAB, Naruto, Bleach to name the most popular, so why not throw a couple of them into MHA where you have already built the foundation for Deku Uraraka, Mina Kirishima, and Denki Kyoka. Actually, it doesn't even have to be them. I bet nobody expected Ino and Sai to end up together, so there is literally no excuse. Alright, let's get back to business. I've been ranting a while already and we've barely touched the plot. It's nothing groundbreakingly new in a broad sense. The same hero's journey that follows many of its predecessors with minor variations. Ordinary life, call to action, supernatural help, trials and tribulations, etc, etc. What stands out is the execution, which My Hero Academia does really well, and I dare say, comes closer to perfecting certain tropes than most other shonens. Is it the best one ever? I'd still put FMAB above it with just how superior its character writing and world building is, yet there are a few things where the latter comes out ahead. Take the aforementioned villains. As much as I can glaze the homunculi and the father, they're pretty conventional in their development. The classic mastermind big bad, a ruthless second in command, an arrogant schmuck, a manipulative bastard, a jiggle physics provider, a dumpy likable minion, a hard-working minion, and an obligatory traitor. Great handling of character archetypes we all know and love. Shigaraki on the other hand, Shigaraki on the other hand is going through the same hero's journey as the protagonist, which makes him appear as an actual living person, not merely an amalgamation of qualities for RMC to overcome at this particular point in time. It's one thing to provide Doflamingo's past that explains how he ended up the way he did, and a completely different story if we saw him rise to infamy alongside Luffy, repeating each step of the Rubberman but towards villainy instead of heroism. Tomura is such a unique case, I can't even find anyone to compare him to. Eren is the main character himself, Meruem is just introspecting, maybe Mahito? That's pretty close, except that he was a menace right from the get-go, and his starting point is Shiggy's midpoint. I love when we get a new trope or a fresh twist on the existing one, because it keeps pushing the whole storytelling medium forward. Take Bakugo. By all accounts, he's the quintessential rival, with some childhood bully, even Mary Sutos in there, and what sets him apart is that he's unlikable. He is not as cool as Sasuke, doesn't have the redemption potential of Zuko, nor the sheer charisma of someone like Karma. His exterior is so overwhelmingly negative that it overshadows all his other qualities, which are mostly good. For example, his ability to recognize other people's strength is something other Vegeta-likes simply don't have. This self-critique is pretty much the source of all his issues, like taking being better than everyone to the extreme, and it's simultaneously what jumpstarts his role to becoming a healthy rival, courtesy of feeling guilty for All Might's retirement. Then there are other redemptions like Endeavor's, which is more of an atonement and deserves its own video due to how complex their whole family situation is. You know what? There are so many more things I want to say about rivals, villains, some parts of world building and stuff that I'll have to make a video dedicated to that as well, so let me address the whole improving on tropes thing by comparing it to one example from Naruto. There is actually more than one similarity. Rude and the Hero Commission, Gentle pulling in Onoki, this stylistic choice of showing the kids' version of characters during important scenes, it's obvious that Horikoshi took a lot of inspiration from the story about the Orange Ninja, and there is nothing wrong with that. Although the example I want to use is almost a complete ripoff. Shirokumo, also known as Kurogiri, a childhood friend of our class sensei who tragically died in a line of duty being crushed by rocks. His body was then taken by the villains, augmented, and given the power of warping stuff. Oboro used to wear goggles, which he gave as a gift to his friend who now wears them, and even their names are 60% identical. Same with Aizawa. Ocular powers, hand-to-hand combatant, similar personality, expelling students, eccentric best friend. But it's all a surface level comparison because he's not just a copy of Kakashi. Class 1A's homeroom teacher is a superior mentor who helps his students grow into a better version of themselves, both physically and mentally. His expelling act is merely a lesson of facing death, even if it's just the death of their dreams, in order to test their conviction and prepare them for the real world. He really cares about his class and wants them to become awesome heroes, which is shown on numerous occasions, assuring Momo that her plan was sound, encouraging the squad before the Shieha Saikai raid, and helping Yuga overcome his fear of All for One. Compare that to the copy ninja, whose only mentorship attempt was telling Sasuke, other people have it just as bad or worse, don't be evil because you have friends, bye bye. I know that his response of all those people have already been killed goes super hard, but it doesn't address Sasuke nor his pain whatsoever. Granted, none of Aizawa's students have gone through that much, yet My Hero Aka absolutely brings up how to deal with people who have strayed from the path in one way or another. Listen closely, because what I'm about to say is both seen throughout the entirety of the story and is true in the real world. Understanding doesn't mean excusing or forgiving. Again, when you explain the reasons for somebody's actions and understand why they do what they do, that doesn't mean you're justifying them. A lot of people can't separate the two, so when they see Ochako having a heart-to-heart with Toga, or even worse, Deku wanting to save Shigaraki, they immediately assume that the latter will be redeemed and join the good guys or something. No. The past will never disappear, and what they're trying to do is understand these bad guys now so that they can prevent them from appearing later. That is the problem with the Hero Society, and is the social commentary from the author, where heroes take the easy route of villainizing everyone without looking into how and why, which as we saw, came back to bite them in the ass. At the bystander syndrome, the phenomenon where individuals are less likely to offer help to a victim as the number of other bystanders increases due to the diffusion of responsibility, and you can instantly see why All Might was equal parts a symbol of peace and a ticking time bomb, because he perpetuated a society that waits until that special someone comes to save the day for them. Same goes for various metaphors used to illustrate such commentary. Deku attacking Shige's mind is just a way to visualize, trying to understand and reach out to people who are struggling. For the third time, this is very important. You understand in order to prevent this happening in the future, and you excuse if you want it to continue. When we saw their memories merging, it meant that they were sharing their experiences, kinda like sitting down and talking to each other to figure out how in the name of Freud did they end up like that. Them appearing as kids is exactly the point, as this is where the baseline of their personalities was established. Midoriya wanted to save people, Uraraka wanted others to smile, and Tenko wanted to be loved. The child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth, and since revenge only creates void, doesn't fill it, he went from destroying the house to destroying All Might to society to the world. Everything must go because he was denied what he truly wanted. Same with Toga, same with Twice. And when Shigaraki asked, is this all it took? Well, yeah, love and compassion can go a long way, so it's imperative to give it to people before it's too late. Not for everyone though. All for One couldn't have been redeemed, and it's normal. There are genuinely bad people out there, but for those who have something good inside, it does work wonders. Have you ever seen one of those videos where an aggressive stray gets picked up, brought back to health, and suddenly it's the most loving thing ever? That's basically it, with the exception that humans are far more complex and require significantly more effort. Now, what about the less exciting characters? My Hero Academia's roster is pretty large, where UA alone has almost 100 named ones, so how does the show handle them? It's not that easy of an answer, and as much as I want to say, boom, most characters suck, they have no development or their build-up is weak, let's take a step back and ask how many people around you are actually that interesting, or is there a mainstream story with a cast this big where everyone is 100% relevant? Sadly, no to both, as even the aforementioned FMAB, which I praise for the side characters, has plenty of Ojira-type dudes like Sergeant Fury, who definitely contribute to the cause but are easily forgettable. On top of that, whether it's due to attention span decreasing or a general shift in the style of storytelling, people seem to be less interested in chill arcs like the school festival, even though we got to see a lot of characters getting the also coveted development. Jiro stepped up into a leading position and gave us an example of how to combine two passions. Bakugo showed that he understands the importance of saving hearts. Mirio persevered without a quirk, focusing on what's in front of him. Eri broke free of Overhaul's curse, and most importantly, Gentle Criminal showcased someone who has lost their way, yet is not quite a fully fledged villain. Don't get me wrong, there are bad examples too, and fans are completely right to demand better execution of certain characters. Shoji, with the whole racism thing, was very shallow. Yes, there were signs, yes, we were given hints, and it still felt forced. Maybe it's because we never left the city setting, or that we only had Spinner highlighting the issue, I don't know. It came and went so fast I was like, okay, great, we are less racist now? Similar thing with Principal Nezu. What made him an international figure with pockets deep enough to fund citywide projects? Why did we never hear this? And so on. However, for every member of the cast that is underbaked, there are ones who are surprisingly interesting. Take Mount Lady. Did you ever notice that despite her antics and very unchristian-like behavior, she was one of the heroes who didn't give in to despair and continued her vigil regardless of the challenges? This is significant as it shows that you don't have to be Tanjiro level benevolent to be a true hero. Oh, and going back to the white cast, by the time that the story wrapped up, most prominent characters had their moment. The biggest ones were probably Monomo and Shinso, who not only gave us an example of how to use villainous quirks for heroic work, but also set a precedent of true heroes emerging from other classes. Hatsumeme, the best girl, is in the same boat. We don't need to know everyone from the support course individually to get the idea of how they fit into the picture, as she represents the epitome of their craft. Then there is Stain, Gentle, La Brava, Lady Negan, the top heroes, the business course, even the last woman to be saved by All Might. Sure, the Class 1A doesn't have 20 Shotorokis in terms of development quality, but don't let that distract you from all the other characters who bring so much to the table. Following that, it's probably a good idea to talk about death of said characters. Not going to sugarcoat, Gran Torino, Edgeshot and Dabi shouldn't have survived. The first one is pretty self-explanatory, and All Might punch through the gut should have killed them right then and there, making the Emo Deku arc that much more meaningful. The second is also simple, cause let's be honest, Bakugo jumpstarting his Heart Hisoka style was total crap. It would have been way more impactful if all the credit, except for nitroglycerin improving his cardiovascular health, went to Edgeshot, who would have paid the ultimate price for a chance that the next generation will succeed where his generation failed. Thirdly, Toya had no business staying alive after all the talk about him being a walking corpse and their whole family having a moment. Dabi is not going to forgive Paparoki regardless of how many times they talk, and I doubt the rest of the family will ever see him again, so what's the point? It's not about how he survives, as I suspect he was using the ice quirk subconsciously not to burn himself completely. It's why do we need him cosplaying the Emperor that is the question. Whatever, it's not that big of a deal, even though it would have made the story a bit heavier in combination with other deaths. Midnight, for instance, was very unexpected, and I appreciate it a lot because it highlights the brutality of war where nobody is safe. For those who say she was irrelevant, maybe to you, I and the kids cared a lot about her. She was the referee at the sports festival, helped our class to choose their hero names, provided impartial analysis of the joint training, taught the students how to give an interview, comforted Kaminari by suggesting to think of someone who mattered the most, as well as encouraged Creati to be strong and believe in herself. If you think that's irrelevant, fuck you, I wish you'd sleep on a warm pillow tonight. Having said that, I would have preferred to see her death impacting students a bit more cause it's their first close-ish person gone, and maybe Momo having some sort of Mirio moment where she decides I'ma follow Miss Midnight's final words and make her proud. Speaking of making a mentor proud, Star and Stripe. At first I thought it was a waste and I maintained that to some degree, yet I also can't say it could have gone any other way. All for One was specifically looking for that quirk and must have planned accordingly to both counter it with the Shiggy merge throwing off her ability to identify an object and intercepting her before she unites with the Japanese heroes. Moreover, if he knew about how the New Order works, which I think he did, he would have had more trouble taking it in his complete body because by that time he would have been the Shigaraki senior we all know and hate without a hint of confusion thanks to his ego, which in turn would have opened him up to the Star and Stripes ability to impose a rule on him. If I'm totally honest with you, this outcome was the best case scenario as it did a number of quirks we have to face, as well as dampened the wannabe Demon Lord spirits even by a bit, making it the first step towards tilting him completely. As a funny side note, it's poetic that an American hero basically did a kamikaze move against a Japanese villain. Finally, we need to go back to the ending I brought up like 20 minutes ago. Was it satisfactory, the All for One and Shigaraki's defeat I mean? 100% without a doubt, it was hype. The battle was awesome, everyone coming together, people believing in heroes again, and so on. That's exactly the problem for me. It's too generic, except for making people who have supported RMC actually do stuff as opposed to their spirits empowering his attack. Nice improvement on the trope, kudos to Horikoshi. But the rest, I'm very conflicted about, because for the storytelling purposes, you needed to have this combined effort to show that the society is on its way to abandoning the symbol of peace in favor of shared responsibility, yet the way All for One took over kinda threw away the subplot of Tomura being the product of said society. If he is now this master-crafted construct, doesn't this mean that his hate is artificial? That's a tough one, because his experiences are indeed real, it's just that he was given the worst hand possible on purpose. That's what, pun number 8 now? I don't think it was necessary. If Chisaki Kai got his punishment for everything he's done, why attempt to make All for One sympathetic with him losing Yoichi and finally understanding what the heroes are about? No. The sad, lonely man should have died miserably, seeing all his plans crumble before his newly rewound eyes. That would have even fixed the overhaul issue, where he wouldn't have known about its existence, avoiding this giant plot hole of ignoring the most useful quirk in the story. You could say this way Shirakumo's conclusion wouldn't have been as good, but he still could have warped Aizawa and Eri in the nick of time to, say, stop Decay from killing Deku, use Rewind to bring his arms back, and then go from place to place helping other heroes until Kuragiri's body literally fell apart from overusing his quirk, sending off Aizawa's friend as a selfless hero he always was. But that's just me. I always want the author to push the envelope and come up with something new, so don't take this as a criticism. I love My Hero Aka, maybe even more than I should, and that's because I have a somewhat of a connection to Deku in particular. You see, Mahis is what my school bully used to call me, then it became my first WoW character's name, shortly after it was my Steam tag, and now it's the name of my YouTube channel. What goes around comes around, and this is probably my favorite part of MHA. My body moved on its own. The story begins with this phrase, and simultaneously, this is what Bakugo says at the end of his transformation. The Soba Shoto brings up is like a ding, we've progressed further into their family storyline, or Midoriya telling Aoyama, you still can be a hero. It's clever writing, and I truly believe that Horikoshi has improved the classic battle shonen formula, not to be confused with the modern dark trio, so stay tuned for the next few videos that will go deeper into what areas My Hero Academia excels at. Iwazai, Mahi is getting some character development into the microphone. Have a great whatever time of the day you have. Until next time, cheers. Whose only mentorship attempt only mentorship attempt... Блять, пиздец какой-то. Whose only mentorship attempt